Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Make the Jump here from the BrickCityBlockade.com podcast network. And sitting across from me, oh man, I've been so excited. I've wanted to talk Star Wars with this guy for so long in person here in an episode from the podcast network. We've been talking on Twitter a lot about The Last Jedi and what it's like to be a Star Wars fan. It's Mr. Fabio himself. Fabio, how's it going? And thank you so much for coming on the
Oh,
BrickCityBlockade.com podcast network.
it's great to be here. I'm honored to be in the with Brick City Blackblade, and I'm excited to talk about Star Wars and just all things Star Wars.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Now, Fabio, I know you and I have been talking a ton on Twitter about the most recent film, The Last Jedi. A lot of the guys from the network have had their thoughts about it. However, I feel like it wouldn't be Star Wars if I didn't ask what you thought of The Last Jedi, because there's a lot to talk about with this film.
Definitely, and actually, I came back home from my fourth viewing in IMAX,
Mm,
and man, I gotta tell you, I love this movie. People have been, nitpicking this movie and talking about all the little details, but man, after viewing it for the fourth time, it just hit me, emotionally, and I can't wait to, actually talk about all the little details. I know there's a lot to talk about, but I just picked the most important things that really caught my eye. So.
yeah, I mean, I feel like Ryan Johnson, Fabio, when it comes to The Last Jedi itself, where there is the nitpicky stuff in the community about, he brought us a very different Star Wars film than we were used to. I'm curious to really hear your thoughts on Ryan Johnson's style to the Star Wars film, because I felt like throughout the entire thing, I wasn't sold on it the first time, but after my second, third, and fourth viewing, I was like, wow, this guy knows how to give us a different twist on this galaxy far, far away.
And yeah, I agree with you. I think it was a different formula from what we used to, especially from the original trilogy. But if you think about it, George Lucas did the same thing with the prequels. He had a
Mm.
completely different formula. He had different visuals, and people just were just like, "Wow, this is Star Wars." But is it really Star Wars? Especially, with the Phantom Menace. It
Mm.
was like a prequel, so they had to do different ships, different designs, and the story was a little similar, but like I said, different formulas kind of scare people off for a while, and then as you start watching it, the first, second, third, fourth time, then you kind of start to get it. um, but to me, it was a new formula, but it was also very connected to the original formula, and that is, from the actual title, Star Wars. I mean, if you when the
Mm.
movie first starts, that's a battle in space, and it was just amazing. It was very fast paced, and that really gave me goosebumps. When they were like dropping the bombs.
Mm.
That was one of the most intense scenes, I think, about of the movie. Just the girl trying to hit the ladder, and then the little remote just falls down, and then just you know she misses it, and then she grabs it, and I was like, I couldn't even breathe. So.
Yeah, I mean, let me just say this too, and just to piggyback off of what you said, Fabio, that opening sequence to the film, maybe other than the whole Hux and Poe Dameron humor piece, which you and I talked about, I always say this: the conversations that happen before we go live are sometimes the best ones. And just that little bit of humor at the beginning of this film, it doesn't matter when you see it or how many times you've seen it. It's funny, no, throughout the entire film. You just kind of go back to that scene with Poe saying, "I'm waiting for Hux," and just that entire interaction is just fantastic. But
you
I
know
think you bring up a really great point. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, I just wanted to add to it. I love Poe as a character. He's the cool guy. He's not. I think they wanted to make him a little bit of Han Solo, but he's a little nicer, on the nicer side, and I like that he's just always making jokes that necessarily like Star Warsy. They're not as like the Star Wars, the usual Star Wars humor with the droids.
Mm.
And I think Ryan Johnson really used that a lot. Just having these little funny jokes that were not like necessarily related to the Star Wars humor, but um, it's a new thing, and I love it. I was laughing the entire time. So.
Yeah, the humor in this film is placed in certain areas where I feel like the fans do get some serious humor out of it. They're able to kind of take a step back from the darkness and the seriousness of moments and just kind of say, oh, this is a nice little twist on the moment and everything. So absolutely, I think that that's one thing that where some fans are saying, well, there might, the humor is a little too much. I would actually say, much like you, that the humor is placed in areas where we can get out of it for a second and say, oh, the Star Wars always had humor in it, and Ryan Johnson was able to capture that perfectly at certain points throughout. And like you said before, the Resistance bomber piece was one of my favorite sequences. Just seeing, when they call in the bombers, and then you see that shot of them entering the screen. That was just traditional Star Wars right there.
Mm-hmm.
What George Lucas captured with the original trilogy. And there were some times where I kind of took a step back and we're like, wow, this is something that George probably would have done cinematically with this universe. So I can't agree anymore, Fabio. The other thing, too, that I think is very important to the storyline of The Last Jedi is everything that happens with Finn and Rose.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of development for Finn in The Last Jedi, more than actually I expected. And for you, Fabio, what did you think of the whole relationship between Finn and Rose in this? Because we know that obviously Kelly Marie Tran was absolutely excited about being in this movie.
Mm-hmm. And I honestly loved it. A lot of people kind of put that aside and just talk about Luke or Kylo and Rey, but I honestly loved their story arc and how like this character, the character of Rose just come out of nowhere and became one of the iconic characters. To me, it's like she just fit in flawlessly, and I love the interaction between her and Finn. I mean, I love Finn. I love them since the Force Awakens, and I feel like they're. I know that a lot of people don't like the Canto Bight scene, but I personally liked it. It was a little bit. It had a little bit of the prequel style, but again, in my opinion, I loved it because I like the prequels. I like the style of the prequels. It kind of reminded me of just like a Coruscant scene, where they will go to
Mm.
a bar, or they will go to the opera. So to me, it was a very important part of the movie, just because they were able to get the code breaker, which Benicio del Toro, amazing. He wasn't in the movie too much, but he really left a mark. And I hope to see this character in the next movie, because I think it needs more development. I was a little disappointed by still talking about character development about Phasma. I
Mm.
think that scene was amazing, but I wish we had a little more of Phasma, a little more development of that character. I think that was the only character that was kind of left out. Not really left out, but it didn't get you know as much development as Poe and Finn and even Rose. So.
That's a really good point, Fabio. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. One of the conversations we've had here at the podcast network is Captain Phasma and the development of that character. Now, recently, we had the release of the Delia S. Dawson novel about Phasma, and then we had a small run of the Phasma comic book.
The comic books.
So,
Hmm.
your thoughts on this specifically? A lot of Phasma content for a character, spoiler alert, that doesn't make it out to the end of this film, and we only see her thrown into a trash compactor in The Force Awakens.
Well, you know what? Actually, you know, th- it was she was supposed to be the new Boba Fett, right?
Mhm.
It kind of, not really, but if you think about Boba Fett in um, Empire Strikes Back and then Return of the Jedi, he doesn't really get a lot of screen time. I mean,
No, true.
it's in Empire, he's he's with the other bounty hunters, and then he collects Han Solo, and then he's in this Sarlacc pit, and then he apparently dies. We don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know what the new canon is for Boba Fett, but um, I can kind of connect her with Phasma, even though she had a different story. And also, I still need to read the book and read the comics. That's on my definitely on my list. There's so much material that I want to read. It's just you gotta pick one and just stick with it, and then move on to the next one. So I think I definitely want to see the character development of Phasma outside the movies.
And Phasma is one of those characters that I agree with you. Phasma has been used very similar to how Boba Fett was used, and whether we see more and more of that character later on down the road, because I always say it, you don't put Gwendolyn Christie in a role if you don't have a plan for that character somewhere else at some point, whether it's in a spinoff, whether it's an animated, whether who knows. Star Wars and Lucasfilm and Disney always have a plan for what they're going to do with these characters, whether they put them on the shelf, whether they're going to use them at any point throughout. And I think that that's pretty much what we saw with that character development. And much like you, Fabio, and I'm sure you feel this way about it, Rey's development along with Kylo Ren, I feel like they kind of go hand in hand at times, not just because Snoke pairs them together through the Force, but there's just so much development for specifically the character of Kylo Ren and his relationship with Rey in The Last Jedi.
Wow, and that's actually one of my favorite parts of the movie. Of course, the main characters, but my first opinion on, for example, Kylo Ren in The Force Awakens, I thought he was a cool character. I wasn't really too convinced with this character because it was like, oh, I want to be Darth Vader. I'm a little brat kind of kind of character. It was a little shallow, in my opinion. In The Force Awakens, there were some parts where it's like, oh wow, he's a cool character. He's got a cool design and all. But in this movie, he actually turned out to be one of my favorite characters. Not only he's unbalanced, how that's how Snow calls him. You're unbalanced. But I can see a lot more of the light side than Rey. Like I feel like Rey was in this movie was much more aggressive. She leaned more towards the dark side than he did. But he still remained the bad guy. But if you look at him, if you look at his expression when he was about to fire on to the the Raddus, the where Leia was at, he hesitated, and then what happened was that when the two TIE fighters actually shot the destroyed the ship, I could see his expression. He was like really upset and like like worried about his mother. So it's like there was a lot of when I first watched the movie, I was like, maybe he's gonna turn to the light side. Maybe there's actually gonna be a swap because Rey, when she was training with Luke, she went down to that pit and she tried to find answers about her parents, and she was really really close to the dark side. So I really loved their connection, and then how like Snoke was he said I did this, I made this connection, but I feel like even though Snoke is dead apparently, and we'll talk about that later. I don't think he's dead, but this connection will still remain, and it's really strong. And I think we're gonna see a final resolution onto the episode 9. So
You made such a great point, Fabio. Thank you so much because I didn't even think about this until this moment, which is why we love doing these talks and having these conversations with people who are in the Star Wars community and fans online and just people who bring unity to the community, is that, and this is interesting because when you look at Kylo Ren, obviously there's that moment that you bring up where he's looking at the Radis and his mother's there and he feels that connection. Somebody else takes the shots and then he feels worried and he feels like he's been taken away from his mother in that moment. However,
Mm,
he's touching upon the light side when doing that. He's touching upon traditionally light side tactics when thinking with the
exactly.
mind. Rey, however, like Luke says, goes straight to the dark to try to find her answers. So
Hmm.
it's one of those fine lines with these two characters, is that even though there's that moment after Snoke is gone, and like you said, we'll talk more about it, where Kylo Ren pretends he's dark and Rey pretends that she's light, I feel like in that moment where he's trying to convince her. I wonder if there's more of a pull to this that Snoke truly wanted to touch upon between connecting them, that they're actually absolute opposites of what they project themselves as.
Hmm. And actually, going back to Snoke, I feel like, who knows? Maybe was just a test, because right now, Kylo is the supreme leader, and
Mm.
he killed Snoke, and he tried. He tried to. The only thing that he missed was having Rey join him. So
Mm-hmm.
he feels like he's the winner. But maybe Snoke is not actually dead, and then he's gonna come back and he's gonna say, "Oh, okay, so now I can see your true self and what you wanted to do in the first place," and
Mm.
then maybe move forward with the story with that. But I really love the duality of the characters. They're just going back and forth, um, and like a lot of I could see a lot of the prequels with Anakin, Kylo Ren trying to have Rey join him, as Anakin having trying to get Padme to join him, and build a new order or whatever.
Mm.
But I feel like this went in a different way because Padme didn't have wasn't she wasn't strong. She couldn't fight him. That was the only
Right.
thing that really got her killed. She failed him, and she couldn't do anything about it. But Rey, she has the Force, on her side, and I feel like eventually she might redeem him, or
Mm.
she might turn to the dark side. And who knows? Anything can happen at this point.
Mm. And there's that absolute pull that, and this is something that was never answered, which I think is going to play obviously into episode 9, because again, Fabio, you just recently came out of seeing it again. Right at the end of the film, it says executive producer J.J. Abrams. And
Hmm.
obviously he knows exactly what's going on with this film and the ways that he can move it going forward. I'm wondering if a lot of the stuff with Snoke wasn't J.J. Abrams oversaw, that he didn't oversee some of that stuff, because these directors work in unique ways with each other, similar to Ryan Johnson with The Force Awakens with J.J. Abrams, where they probably threw back and forth ideas about how to close out the film and how to bring it back. Probably similar to how J.J. Abrams is going to pick up where Ryan Johnson left off, I feel. Because that's what these guys do. They do it flawlessly, I feel.
Yeah, and I feel like this is the different. A lot of people were worried about this new wave approaching Star Wars movies, where you have with George Lucas, he already knew beginning to end what was going to happen throughout the movies. He will plan it out ahead, and this is episode 1, 2, 3. This is the story. But with this
Mm.
one, it's like, okay, J.J. Abrams is like, okay, I'm gonna pick up what George Lucas did, and then rebrand it, freshen it up, and then just throw it out there. And then right at the end, which by the way, the final scene of The Force Awakens was my favorite of all time. Like
Mm-hmm.
it gave me the chills, and like it was so intense. And a lot of people are like, "What? But why didn't he say anything?" I'm like, "That's the best part. It's just seeing
Yes.
the expression." And then all of a sudden you start watching the Last Jedi, and then okay, something cool is gonna happen. He's gonna be like, I'm gonna train you, or like something cool, and then he just throws a lightsaber, and I was like, I start cracking up. I'm like, what happened? And a
Yeah.
lot of people were like, whoa, why is Luke, so funny and so grumpy? I'm like, have you seen Yoda in Empire Strikes Back? I mean,
Oh.
the transition between Yoda from the prequels and Yoda from the original trilogy is huge. I mean, in the prequels, he was never funny. Like, he was always serious.
Hmm.
And then you see him like, a little old little guy just making jokes and trying to steal food from Luke. I mean, that's, it works. So, like I said, going back to the formula, it's a new formula that Ryan Johnson did, but he's bringing back some of these elements that nobody's noticing.
Hmm. Yeah, and he's doing it in ways that encapture the fans, and even though that the complaints are, well, this isn't the Star Wars we remember. Well, technically, it kind of is. It's a very similar formula. It's just I feel like we've gotten to the point where it's like we look and I've said this on countless occasions, Fabio. I know you know this too, is that sometimes we build up expectations way too high. We want questions answered. And Star Wars is one of those films where it may answer a couple of questions, but it's going to give you six more to run with heading into the next one because it's what these films do, and it's what creates the conversations. Is the cinematic approach that Ryan Johnson brought to The Last Jedi allows us to have more conversations until 2019 when we get some more answers. And it's just absolutely fantastic in the grand scheme of it.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with it. I agree with you. And a lot of times I'm that type of guy that likes detail. I really want to know everything about it. But sometimes I think as I grew older, I feel like I need to let go sometimes. And I think sometimes fans really need to understand that you have to let go and just enjoy the movie. Just like how Obi-Wan told, young Luke, say, just let go of your conscious self. I think it was
Mm.
that was the right line. But otherwise you will never understand the Force. And that's the same thing with this movie. You have that's why you have to watch it multiple times. The first time just absorb it. And the second
Mm-hmm.
time, just get all the details. And then the last time I just wanted to go there and see it one more time to just experience it, like,
Mm.
just emotionally. And that's when you really get it. So and that's why I love this movie so much.
There's a lot of emotion in this film, and obviously Carrie Fisher herself. That's the one thing throughout The Last Jedi. They did not skimp on the Carrie Fisher. And I think from wherever she is right now, she's looking down on Ryan Johnson and is like, nice, you kept me in the film long enough. I really appreciate that.
Hmm.
You dunce head. No, she'd probably say something completely along the levels of of craziness. However, the way that she's used in this film is just truly Carrie Fisher. And I have to admit, the scene where she walks in after everything that happens on the Radis, and she walks in with the white gown on and everything, and the cane, and Poe's like Leia, and she just stuns him. I think that is just. I laughed at that. Everybody else in the theater was, other than of course the podcast network guys, because we kind of got it. Um,
Hmm.
Everybody else was like, "Oh my goodness, she did that," but I'm kind of like, "Nope, that's." I bet
That's
she.
her.
I bet she told Ryan she wanted to do that in that scene. She wanted to
Yeah.
knock Oscar Isaac right off his feet. So
Yeah, or like smack him in the face and get your head out of your cockpit or something like that.
yeah.
That was totally her. That was totally her. But you know what? Actually, it makes making me think about that scene, and I don't know if this was unintentional, but I'm sure not. Um, the scene where like Poe is like getting ready, and they're like opening up the door, just blasting it open, and then there's like all the smoke, and then she comes out. That's totally Darth Vader in A
Oh
New
yes.
Hope. That's I actually tweeted it and I said Lady Vader because that's how they call her in the expanded universe.
Mm.
But that was totally a Lady Vader moment. It's like that's totally Darth Vader, and I kind of like that. They just throw it in there. So I don't know if you noticed that, but it was pretty cool.
Now that you mention it, and we just recently had an interview with Claudia Gray on our website, a little Q&A. I kind of feel like that it kind of gave that level, like what we see in Bloodline and everything, to the character of Leia, that you know what, she is Vader's blood, and that
Mm-hmm.
she can kind of tap into that at times. And I feel like at that moment, you're right, when the doors opened, and it's funny, even how the door exploded was so
Uh-huh.
similar to A New Hope. And
I
now
think it
that
was the same door.
yeah, yeah, the structure of it and everything. So I wonder if Ryan Johnson kind of knew some of the canon and knew the character of Leia enough to know her bloodline. No, no, no puns intended, really. But just to kind of give that moment, that kind of level of gravitas for that character. And oh, you're so right. Now I have to go back and watch that. There goes another viewing of The Last Jedi for me. So Leia absolutely is fantastic in this film. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Fabio, on the character of Holdo. Um,
Hmm.
I feel like Laura Dern, at first, you're kind of like rooting against her because of Poe, but
Yes.
after a while, you come back around and you're like, wow, Laura Dern played a character that is just so believable and you can get behind in any moment.
Yeah, and you know what? To be honest, when I first heard of about her character, and then when they posted the first pictures, I'm like, pink hair, or whatever, purple,
Yeah.
whatever. I just it just she didn't quite fit Wars universe as a character, like visually to me. Like that was my first impression. I'm like, okay, and then
Mm,
as they introduced her. And she was all snippy with Bill. I liked their interaction,
mm,
and how like I thought she was like doing something bad, to she was refilling the fuels for the transports and all. And
mm,
I'm like, why is she doing that? I was like a little mad at her, and then I realized what she was doing, and she was actually trying to help, but I guess she couldn't tell Poe that they were going to crate, which is kind of strange. I'm like, why wouldn't you tell him? But then again,
mm,
maybe they have like some history or
mm,
something. They just don't like each other. I guess I can see that. She's the leader, and then he's a very excited person. He just wants to get to the cut to the chase, and make a mess with the destroying the turrets, and trying to destroy the you know but I feel like I really like the character. I wish we had. I know that she is in. Let's see, one of the books. Help me out with that.
yeah,
Is it in
she's
Leia's
mentioned.
book? I think
Yeah, it's in the
Princess of
Leia.
Alderaan, right? Hmm.
Yes, she's mentioned. Absolutely.
Yeah, I gotta read that because I heard that she's got a lot more character development
Mhm.
in the book than the movie, and I think if I read the book before actually going to see the movie, I probably would have gotten more.
Mhm.
But I feel like it was she was perfect within her role within the movie. She played a really important part, and also, I mean, one of the best scenes, visual scenes of the movie, when she just goes through light speed. She
Oh
jumps
man.
to light speed and she destroys, Snow ship. That was something really cool that I actually liked from Rebels. I don't know if you remember it. I don't know if there was one episode or two episodes of the of season 4
Mhm.
where Hera actually jumps. She jumps through light speed and she goes through a ship. Um,
Oh yes, when she takes off through uh one of the what do they call those? Like a blockade
yeah,
ship.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and she goes straight through it and through. Yeah, you're right.
I thought that was pretty awesome, but this one is even more epic because that's her. That's she pretty much sacrificed her life for the rebellion. And visually, I mean, that was amazing. I thought that was one of the coolest visual effects of any movie. So I really hope that the they get an Oscar for that, because that was just like mind blowing. So
And it's one of those things that I think, amongst everything else that happens in The Last Jedi, is going to be iconic to this film, because the every time I watch this movie now and I see her starting to turn that ship, I'm like, I kind of have to prepare myself for it coming now. You have to almost say, wow, this is a very critical moment for not just her character, but for the success of the resistance, which then becomes the rebellion again. Um,
uh-huh.
that choice that she made was so crucial, and I never thought I'd be saying this. And let me know your thoughts on this, Fabio. Is that Holdo is important and plays the most important role in the success of the rebellion going forward because of that moment.
Yeah, I mean, without her, they would have been dead, because
Yeah.
Rey was doing her thing. They Finn was trying to get back. I don't know if Finn was back already. I don't think so.
No, not just yet.
No, that was not just yet. Yeah. But yeah, and I think that like I said, she played a really small role, but it was so important
Mm.
that it has to be recognized. And also, I want to add to the effect, the destruction effect, and like there was all silent and then an explosion. That reminded me of episode 2, when Obi-Wan in there was like a chase between Obi-Wan and Jango Fett, and
Oh
then
yes,
he
the detonators that he sent out.
yes, and which I love, and I think that's probably the reason why I love that scene so much, is because of
Yeah.
the detonators, which are, by the way, I think they are on Battlefront 2. I still haven't gotten
Yes.
the chance to play with that ship. So
Yeah, no, that's one of those things that, again, maybe is probably on a much larger scale, obviously, but um, kind of a callback to the prequels in that way. And I think for Star Wars fans, that's kind of a cool thing, whether you like them or not. It's something that Ryan Johnson was able to bring back and make do his own little twist on it, basically, and give us something familiar about this galaxy far, far away. Now, Fabio, another thing, we kind of teased this. I definitely want to talk about a little bit more about Snoke, because I feel like that character, we got to know a little bit more of him, in terms of, first of all, Andy Serkis in that role. He never ceases to amaze me with the characters that he does, whether it's Gollum, um, whether it's in Rise of
Caesar, yeah.
yeah, Caesar. Anytime you give him a character, there were times even when I was watching it, and I was like, man, I have to remember this is motion capture, and a lot of
Hmm.
this is CGI. It almost felt so real to me at moments, and I think Andy Serkis brought that out.
Hmm. And I agree with you. I honestly, I was a little worried about that when while watching The Force Awakens, because we don't really get to see him as much, and with the hologram version of him, I felt like it was a little too fake. And
Mhm.
I'm like, I was a little worried to see him actually in person. I'm like, oh man, it's gonna be like a little dude, or it's gonna be a giant person. But luckily, they made him like regular size. I
Yeah,
think he's a little taller than Kylo Ren, but man, that was amazing. And you know what? Even the golden silk robe. At
mm.
first, I was like, this is funny. I mean, he looks like he just came out of bed, but it fits. It fits perfectly, and it's actually pretty cool. That could probably be like a potential cosplay for me, because it's just so funny and it's so iconic. It just became so
Oh man.
iconic that you would just like look. If I dressed up like that, you would definitely recognize the character. And it would probably be even cheaper than getting a full armor, stormtrooper armor. So.
That's a really great cosplay idea. I'm sure that we'll see once the convention cycle starts around, and I can guarantee you at Star Wars Celebration 2019, I bet there's going to be a lot of Snoke cosplays, along, of course, with Kylo Ren and a lot of different things. We can't wait to see those. If you're already working on a Snoke one, please send it to us, because I would just love to see the development of that costume. So Snoke was there, obviously. All right. We got to talk about the one pressing thing with The Last Jedi that everybody's talking about that happened in this film, Fabio. I'm talking about the porgs.
Oh my gosh. I
I
love the
mean,
porks.
what are your thoughts on them?
I
Because
love the
I came
porks
out
so
loving
much. Okay, so I'll tell you this. Okay, so when they first released the porgs, I was thinking, like, wow, they remind me of something
them.
that
Hmm.
I know. And the other day I was just walking around. I'm like, oh, that's my cat. Like the porgs look like my cat. One of my cats is really fat and really chubby, and like the face, like there was that porg that it was like kind of crying and like looking at
Yeah.
uh, Chewbacca while he was trying to eat, and then he was making like the little sad face. That expression looks exactly like my cat's,
Oh,
and
wow.
I was like, "That's awesome! I gotta find it some time, and like I gotta find the perfect picture of my cat next to a pork, and you will believe me. It's so funny." But I love the porgs, man. Like I thought it was a good addition. It wasn't too obstructive. It wasn't um like it didn't ruin the movie, or it didn't ruin the scenes they were in. I actually thought they fit just perfectly, because if you think about it, when you have a movie so you know so big, like when you create a new world, a new universe, you have to have all these little elements, all these new creatures, and without them, it wouldn't be Star Wars. Just like all the different creatures from the prequels, from the original trilogy, and yes, the Ewoks. um, I feel like they were just perfect, and it had a little, they added a little bit of humor, but that was actually a Star Wars humor. And
Hmm.
I think a lot of people may not understand this, but I feel like I define Star Wars humor as humor from droids, uh, you know,
Hmm.
uh, that where you don't really understand the droids, but like putting it all together, it's just funny. Just like that scene from The Force Awakens and BB-8 when he just like does this the thumbs up.
Yeah,
That's Star Wars humor to
it
me.
is.
And actually, I want to add to it, and I'm going a little off tangent because I just
No,
like the
go for it.
humor part of it. But I don't know if you remember this, but when they're trying to, okay, so Finn, Rose, and DJ, they're trying to infiltrate to Snoke's ship. Um,
Hmm.
they have BB-8, but BB-8 is a BB unit that's not, it's not it's not part of the First Order, so they had
Hmm.
to kind of camouflage him, and so they
Oh.
put a little box, a black box, over him. And the
Yep.
funniest thing was that he was simulating the mouse droid sound, like duh,
Yes, he
duh, duh,
was.
duh, 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 duh. And it was so funny. That's like the purest Star Wars humor. Like that's like at the top of it. So I thought that was hilarious. Not a lot of people probably thought that. Like I didn't hear anybody laughing at it,
Right.
but I thought it was hilarious. So
And that he would be able to pick up on that sound, like almost like it was registered as a droid, that's what a mouse droid sounds like. It's so cool. And just for him, and then obviously the first order BB unit there, he looks
so
down
cool.
when he notices the sound, and he just kind of looks like, what's making that noise? Like, we haven't heard one of
Uh-huh.
those in years. So it's kind of, yeah, you're right. It is Star Wars humor, and it's the subtle things that fans
Hmm.
can pick up on. Uh, whether it's your first viewing or if it's your 10th viewing, it doesn't matter, because it just adds an extra level to the film. And just like you said, when it comes to humor, it's something that we can all kind of call back to and say, oh, this is so cool that they just made this reference in there, even though it's within a small moment. So we have that, which I think is fantastic. And then obviously the big picture here is Luke Skywalker and his development in The Last Jedi. And
Oh,
you mentioned it earlier when he tosses the lightsaber over his shoulder. Um, I love the subtle hints that they do, all the callbacks to Luke in the original trilogy, um, especially when he sees R2 again. That is one of
Mhm.
my favorites. And then he tells him that he's me. That's a low blow, dude, because he shows him the original Leia the message. Um,
Uh-huh.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. What did you think about that scene? Because that's one of the scenes, one of the more emotional scenes for me that I really actually
Yes.
needed some tissues for.
Yes, and actually, that was actually one of my favorite scenes. One of the most emotional scenes. I felt it a lot when I went to see it this last time, the fourth viewing. You know what? I feel like there's a lot to talk about Luke Skywalker, and one of the things that I want to touch upon is a lot of people said that's not my Luke, but then
Mm.
I'm like, but yes, it is.
Right.
It's just uh, not just. I think a lot of people are trying to associate Luke with Return of the Jedi Luke. When
Mm-hmm.
he was at the top of the world, he was the legend. He said it during this movie. He said, "For many years there was balance, and I was the legend. I
Mm-hmm.
was Luke Skywalker, the legend." So that is all of it is true. However, what happened is that he grabbed 13 students, including Kylo Ren, or I mean, at that point, Ben Solo, um, and he just wanted to pass on his knowledge. And
Mm-hmm.
he thought he was invincible. He was doing in the perfect way, and he was doing the perfect. And actually, if you think about it, when he was trying to strike Ben down with he was like trying to get into his mind, and he saw the dark side, and then he tried to strike him down.
Mm-hmm.
He said for a second, and that was like a little selfish moment that he regretted. He said, like, I saw what he was gonna do, and he was gonna basically destroy everything that I worked for, all my friends, and
Mm-hmm.
and basically destroy my life. And so that's when he tried to strike him down. But then he realized, I'm like, whoa, 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 what am I doing? Me. And so that's the thing. Like, I feel like he realized that, and he just wanted to not make the same mistake again, which was a mistake at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But just him going to this secret place and just going there to die, I don't think that's just it. First
No.
of all, why would he go to an island where you have that sacred tree with the sacred texts? And and then also, if you notice that just like for like 1 second, you see a compass, and that's
Mm-hmm.
actually a compass from Battlefront 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the story where he goes to Pilio. I think it's one of the planets from and I don't want to spoil this. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling this. Sorry
That's fine.
guys if I'm spoiling this, but it's been a while, so if you haven't played the single player, I feel sorry for you. Because it's amazing, by the
It is.
way. It's amazing. It's an amazing story. But anyways, he goes there to find answers, and he
Mm-hmm.
goes there to learn new ways of the Force, such as the astral projection, and just being able to really understand the Jedi Order. And that's why I think that's when he realized that the Jedi should, it's time for the Jedi to end because of what happened in the past. The Jedi let Darth Sidious raise to power. Darth Sidious, destroyed the Jedi, destroyed the Republic, and
Mm-hmm.
that was all partly, Yoda's fault and Mace Windu's fault and the Jedi Order's fault, and also
Mm-hmm.
with the creation of Darth Vader. And he says it. He's telling you, Luke is telling you the reason why this happened. But a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people just want to deny him, like, well, but he abandoned his friends. I'm like, he always does. I mean, like, he goes
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
train. He's like, well, guys, sorry, I gotta train, but you guys do your battles, and then he feels bad, and it's like, well, I gotta go. It's a. I think he's like trying to fit two different roles. The role of a
Mm.
Jedi, and then responsible for the Jedi Order because he's the last of the Jedi until the end, because he passes on that title to Rey, but also being able to help his friends, which in the end he did. He
Mm-hmm.
astral projected. He bought them time to leave, and then as soon as Rey lifted the rocks, which that was funny, as she said,
Mm-hmm.
lifting
Mm-hmm.
rocks, and then he's like, okay, now I can be done. And so he saved his friends. He might even redeem Kylo Ren because he says, "See you around, kid." So he's gonna be there for him. And so I think he's the most complete character that we've had in a long time, because with Anakin Skywalker, he dies on Mustafar, and then he comes
Mm-hmm.
back when Luke saves him. So it's like it's very. I like that the arc of Luke, farm boy Luke, in Force, Jedi Ghost. Luke is just a complete story. So that's what I liked about it.
There's a lot of progression with Luke Skywalker. And it really just summarizes itself beautifully in The Last Jedi. You're absolutely right, Fabio. He's come 360 in terms
Mm-hmm.
of where he started and what he's become. And I'm telling you, that whole scene with Luke, the tree, the text, and Yoda. I thought
Oh my God.
that was another
Amazing.
emotional scene for me when they're both sitting next to each other with the burning tree. I mean, for anybody who is a hardcore Star Wars fan or just a Star Wars fan alone and knows these films, that is iconic to me now with this film. Another iconic moment is Luke and Force Ghost Yoda sitting there watching the tree burn, and the significance that that has right there. That is where the Jedi end, because you have the last living original through the
Mm-hmm.
Force Jedi, and you have Yoda, the 900-year-old Jedi Master, and you're watching a basically a holy tree within the Force burn before their very eyes. And
Yeah.
if you were to make a poster for The Last Jedi, if you were to do a fan one, I would say, boom, right there, take that shot and put the words The Last Jedi with the Star Wars logo right there, and it would explain it perfectly. Because there's a lot of levity to that moment. I feel like Luke finally is able to come to grips with, you know what, the only way for things to work out, which is why Yoda says failure is life's greatest lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And
I love that. I love
for,
that so much.
it's the same thing for Yoda. Life showed him something different, and he went through the failure of the Jedi Order and the Republic to finally come down and realize, you know what, there's a lot more to it than just the Force and the Jedi. There's a certain aspect of connection that happens, and I think that was that moment for Yoda, and especially for Luke. Curious to hear your thoughts on this, Fabio. I think that Yoda scene is so crucial to where Luke ends up here and where he's going forward.
Oh, actually, what you just said was it just made me think about something. So you said that there's so much more, and I think Yoda really realized that during the prequels he was on one side, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was on the light side. He
Mm-hmm.
was trying to be on the light side as much as possible, but then he realized that even then he failed. He actually, being on the light side, he helped the dark side rise to power.
Mm-hmm.
And so he realized that after a long time, and I think now it was the time for Luke Skywalker to really understand that there's so much more. That there's also the greatest lesson of this movie, like you said, is failure is your greatest lesson. And I think that's like a little quote. I don't know if you're a fan of the Clone Wars, like a hardcore fan, but every time you start a new episode, they have a little quote, like a little
Yes,
lesson.
that's
I,
right.
I felt like that was like one of those quotes. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like
Mm-hmm.
if Last Jedi was a Clone Wars episode, that will be the quote for the
Yeah.
first. Yeah. Um, but yes, I feel like uh, there's, and then also like one of the quotes, Luke's quotes, "It's time for the Jedi to end." He means for the Jedi Order, for what they did, that Jedi Order from the prequels to end, and
Mm,
to start something that's more balanced. And I think a lot of people are like, whoa, 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 we can't have balance. It has to be dark side or light side, and then they fight each other. But I was like, that's
mm,
unnecessary. And we see this in this movie where, Kylo Ren and Rey are definitely not, they don't mention in dark side, light side, Sith, Jedi. It's like, they alternate these titles, and
mm.
they're just trying to make it all blend in, and make people understand that it's the balance. Sometimes we do bad things, sometimes we do good things, but it's part of being human in our case. But in the movie, it's just about the balance of the force. So
The traditional sense of the Force has been completely turned over on its head, I feel, with The Last Jedi. And it's one of those things, it's like throughout this entire film, we really only see two moments where lightsabers are truly used compared to a lot of the original trilogy where you did see prominence of lightsabers, and obviously in the prequels you saw prominence focus on the lightsaber with the Jedi. I said this before this film came out, Fabio, on countless episodes, and we've talked about it here at the podcast network, and I'm going to be curious to hear your thoughts on this. I feel like Star Wars, and especially through Rebels, with the projection of Kanan Jarrus and the focus on the Force more than the wielding of the lightsaber, and Rogue One, including the
uh,
the
Chir
yeah,
Enwa.
yeah, Chirrut and the whole Guardians of the Wills,
Mm-hmm.
which obviously we see in the Clone Wars, which is something that Dave Filoni loves to get into, is the actual realism within the Force. I feel like Episode 9, and because of The Last Jedi and what Rian Johnson was able to do, the traditional sense of the Force and what the Jedi are is moving towards that connection to nature, the connection to the living Force more than just lightsabers, and I feel like that could be the t-shirt. The Force is more than light swords, you know,
Uh-huh.
it's something that encompasses the mind and the being of that who wields it. And as silly as it is, Broom Boy at the end of this film encompasses that perfectly when he force picks up the broom at the very end.
Yeah, and you know why? I actually, I trying to remember one of the scenes. Yeah, one of the last scenes where um, there was like interaction between Ray and Leia, and Ray is all worried, like, oh, how are we gonna rebuild the rebellion? How are we gonna build
Mm-hmm.
this new rebellion? And Leia just tells her, "Oh, we got everything we need." And then look at the lightsaber; it's broken. But I think that's a
Mm-hmm.
symbol of just being like, you don't really need a lightsaber to build a rebellion, to
Mm-hmm.
build anything. And also Luke, when he said, you think I'm just gonna grab my laser sword and face the face the First Order. That's exactly what the movie's telling you. It's not about the object. It's not about lifting rocks. It's not about manipulating people's minds. It's about understanding the force and respecting the force. And I feel like it's a life lesson that could be related to other things in our world, such as respecting nature. I think it's got all these messages. They're just telling you, materialism is great, but it's not just that. There's more. There's more than that. So
Yeah, there's just so much more to um, understanding the balance of the Force, or what side of the Force you're on. There's just more to that. There's this extra level of well-being that can be explored, whether you're dark side, whether you're light side, doesn't matter. There's a place that you can go to and that you can understand. Wow, there's just so much that The Last Jedi did, Fabio. And any final thoughts on your viewing of The Last Jedi more recently? Anything that you came out feeling different than from the other viewings, or maybe you noticed something else?
I feel like a lot of people got really emotional with the last scene where, you know, Luke just, disappears and becomes part of the Force. I feel like the first two viewings for me, I feel like it was a lot that I've experienced. That when I got to that point, I was so tired that I didn't really feel the emotion. But this
Mm-hmm.
time, this fourth viewing, I was just like, in tears. I was just like, oh my gosh, like it really hit me now because I finally understand Luke. I finally understand what he's gone through and what he did, and how he sacrificed himself for his friends. And also, a really sad thing that I noticed is that we're losing all the main characters. We lost
Yeah.
Han, we lost Luke, and we lost Carrie Fisher. So I think we're also gonna lose Leia. So that's a really sad thing that I noticed. And then that twin sun scene where he looks at the
Oh,
horizon. That was just,
yeah.
it's something that it hit me even more because of the project that I've been working on. And I
Mm.
don't know if the listeners are aware of this, but my team and I have been working on this for a long time, Tatooine times. And I just want to touch upon this, if you know, if you will. But this project started after I went to a Star Wars celebration in Orlando,
Mm.
and I've always been a huge Star Wars fan. I'm actually originally from Italy, so I was able to share that with all my friends in Italy. But as soon as I moved here, it took me a while to get a new group of friends and to become friends with new people. So the Star Wars connection kind of it was very weak. But as soon as I went to Star Wars Celebration, I gained that connection back, and it was stronger than ever. And just the energy and the emotion that I felt from that event, it was incredible. And after coming out of that, I'm like, I think I should start something. I want to share my Star Wars love with other people, with the Star Wars community. Let's start something. And so my team and I came up with Tatooine Times, which is going to be a website that's going to focus on news, reviews, and collectibles.
Mm.
It's the usual thing, but with a twist, because we want to really focus on you know um, making this as fun as possible for the fans, from
Mhm.
Star Wars fans to the Star Wars community. And that's my message. I mean, um, I really wanted to create a website that's gonna be interactive. It's gonna be fun for the fans, and then just also being able to get some feedback from the fans, and hear their thoughts about what we do. And I'm pretty sure that you experienced that daily, with your
Mhm.
podcast. And I think that's a beautiful thing, just being able to share that with the fans, and being able to create something that you're proud of, and that it just it's just exciting, because we live in a
Mm.
Star Wars. We absorb so much Star Wars, but we don't create enough Star Wars, and I think it's time for the fans to create more, you know, and
Yeah.
uh, and that's if you listeners want to check out tatooinetimes.com. It's we create a landing page for now that's going to become a full website in the next few months. We're working all working hard on this. We've been working hard for a while, and it wouldn't I wouldn't be able to do this. I wouldn't have been able to do this without my team. So I want to thank my team, Dan Solo, who's probably listening right now. He's a great collector. You can find him on Twitter, and he's been helping a lot with that, not just with collectibles, but coming up with ideas. Also, Fabienne from Belgium, and my team is from all over the place. We have people from the UK, people from Belgium, people from other parts of the US, but that's the fun part of it, being able to connect with other people. And also my friends Richard and Austin and Danny, and without them, I wouldn't have been able to do this. So thank you so much, and also thank you, Brick City Blockade for doing this, because it's you know without this, I wouldn't been able to. I want to be able to share this with the Star Wars community. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure working with Tatooine Times. We look forward to everything that you will be doing in the near future. I'm good friends with Mr. Dan Solo on Twitter, so he and I will be going back and forth on some Star Wars. I would love to have him on the show too, just to keep the aspect of the community going here. Obviously, Fabio, that's how we met. It was through the unity in the community um, that brought us together. And here at the BrickCityBlockade.com podcast network, we're always looking for the community aspect in Star Wars. It's what we thrive on. And I feel like it's what fans need right now, Fabio, with everything happening in the world and everything happening in the Star Wars community. Where there is negativity, there is also positivity. And I think both of us, through our projects, try to tell the fans, you know what? You have an outlet to go to have fun and listen to positive people using positive language talking about this galaxy far, far away.
Awesome, awesome, and and that's the message that really connected me with Brick City Blockade. The positivity aspect of it, and it's just amazing, because some people take it for granted, but it's really important to keep the positivity up, and also being able to just be open to the fan community, and hear their thoughts. Like even with the Last Jedi, I talked to other people at work, being like, "Oh, I really didn't like this movie. That's not my look." But instead of being like, very defensive about it, I sat down with them and said, "Okay, let's talk. I wanna know what you think about it." And
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe you can change my mind on certain aspects. I can change your mind on some aspects. But just being able to communicate that is really important, because it's just getting your own opinion and talking about it by yourself is not it's not going to help you really understand. So I think just being able to talk to other people about it and also have fun while doing it,
Mhm.
that's priceless. So
Yeah, having fun is the entire thing, both here at Tatooine Times and BrickCityBlockade.com podcast network. It's all about fun and it's all about the discussions. Fabio, it's that time of the show we always like to do. It's a little thing called plug time here at the podcast network. Where can the good people find you across social media?
okay, so I'm mostly on Twitter at capital FAB, capital ELI, capital FLOW. I know it's kind of a strange name, but it's basically my first, middle, and last name, except for my last name is Fiori if in Italian, and in English will be flowers, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what it translates to. So I came up with this some sort of acronym. But and
Nice.
also, if you want to check out our website, tatooinetimes.com. Also, you can find us on Twitter at Tatooine_Times, and Facebook Tatooine Times. And also, if you have any questions, specific questions about the site, TatooineTimes@gmail.com.
You guys can follow me over on Twitter at Mr. Vote Tweets. Please make sure to head on over to Instagram. Follow me at the official vote. Also, please make sure to head on over to www.brickcityblockade.com for everything happening in a galaxy far, far away. Also, please make sure to head on over to iTunes, hit that subscribe button, and rate the shows. That's what brings on people like Tatooine Times and Mr. Fabio Fiori here into the discussions and to bring unity in the community wherever it is in a galaxy far, far away. Fabio, once again, thank you so much for coming on. We are so excited about Tatooine Times. We'll be sharing out so much great stuff that you guys are doing over there. It's been an awesome chat.
It's been an honor for me. Thank you so much, and thank you to the Star Wars community. I can't wait to share even more with the community, and with Brick City Blockade.
Awesome. Thank you guys for listening here on Make the Jump here from the BrickCityBlockade.com podcast network. And as we always say, may the force be with you
May the force be with you.
always.